Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostre. Amen.
It's another day, my dudes. My name is John Fisher 2.0, and I'm going to continue my dialogue on the validity of Anglican orders with disputed questions, my great interlocutor, or as he has renamed himself right now, Apologia Anglicana. Christian has responded kindly with his opener and taken what I think is a very interesting strategy. Namely, he grants apostolic curiae in arguendo and will argue that Anglican orders, due to the influx of old Catholic bishops, would be valid according to our standard. In effect, he's making what is truly a Catholic case for the validity of Anglican orders. This would enable Pope Leo XIII to have made the right call while still honoring the orders of Anglican priests and bishops in the modern context. Before I respond, I would like to say that I as a Catholic could in good faith accept such a conclusion, but from here on out I am still going to argue against the validity of Anglican orders because I believe that the laity cannot be consecrated bishops, and I don't think the case to the contrary is as strong as my friend thinks. What I consider the greatest weakness of his case is the commitment to the idea that bishops would still have been properly ordained, even if they were not properly ordained priests first. While this is a disputed question among students of sacramentology, I think those who reject the proposition are on better footing, and for the rest of the video I will be providing proof against promotional ordinations, or in the Latin per Saltum. This is the conferring of the office of bishop to that of a layman. While I could speak more to the worries of intention and form, I think this is a major issue that deserves to be addressed within its own right. First, I would like to begin by quoting the authority of the priest and theologian, Father Joseph Texerno, who says the following, quote, "Theologians and canonists should excommunicate sententiae that the episcopal consecration is null and void, if not preceded by ordination to the priesthood. This is most notably the opinion of St. Thomas Aquinas. In order to prove the episcopacy is not an order entirely distinct from the priesthood." End quote. The ruling of excommunicate sententiae is characterized, according to Ludwig Ott, as, quote, "common teaching. Sententiae communicis is doctrine, which in itself belongs to the field of free opinion, but which is accepted by theologians generally." End quote. According to Ott, denying such common teaching is a, quote, "erroneous proposition, opposed to a truth which is proposed by the Church as a truth intrinsically connected with a revealed truth, error in fide ecclesiasticae, or opposed to the common teaching of the theologians, error theologicus." End quote. While the Church may err in such an opinion, it is to be affirmed prima facie until such a teaching is superseded. This opinion must be given assent. The assent to which we owe this may be reconsidered, but not openly denied as false. In the case of our friend Christian, to persuade us, he cites the following argument from Thomas Aquinas. I won't repeat the Summa verbatim, but it is in the supplementum to the third part of the Summa. Question 35, Article 5, in his section on the contrary. There he makes the following sort of argument. Premise 1, if a higher order contains a lower order, then one does not need to repeat the ordination of the lower order. Premise 2, the minor orders are contained in the major orders. Conclusion, no one needs to receive the minor orders if they weren't ordained to them first. End quote. For St. Thomas, because the episcopate is not a fully distinct order from the presbyterate, we cannot say the episcopate contains it. He says, quote, "One order does not depend on a preceding order as regards to the validity of the sacrament, but the episcopal power depends on the priestly power, since no one can receive the episcopal power unless he previously held the priestly power. Therefore, the episcopate is not an order." End quote. While St. Thomas would not deny the second premise, since he does not believe the episcopate to be an order unto itself, we cannot, as Catholics, do the same, since, according to the Second Vatican Council, we read, quote, "The Church is permanent, and is to be exercised without interruption by the sacred order of bishops. Therefore, the Sacred Council teaches that bishops by divine institution have succeeded to the place of the apostles as shepherds of the Church, and he who hears them hears Christ, and he who rejects them rejects Christ, and him who sent Christ." End quote. Elsewhere, it says, "Hence one is constituted a member of the episcopal body in virtue of sacramental consecration and hierarchical communion with the head and members of the body." End quote. The magisterial language commits us to the view that bishops are in fact a sacred order and sacramental based on the solemn language. Does this mean we cannot affirm with St. Thomas that the consecration of bishops is invalid if the recipient is himself not a priest? No, this does not, because with St. Alphonsus Liguori we can affirm that the episcopate is a distinct order from the priesthood and yet agree that Christ required the priestly ordination anyway. According to the Dictionnaire de Théologie Catholique, quote, "The partisans of the adequate distinction of the episcopal and presbyteral orders do not all accept this conclusion of the validity of per saltum consecrations. God could have established the priestly character as a necessary precondition for the episcopate, just as he demands the baptismal character before priestly ordination." End quote. While this might come across as special pleading, I think that there is some support for this position from Scripture. In Scripture, it would seem to be the case that since Christ did not ordain any of the apostles to the diaconate before making them priests, however, he did ordain them priests in the Last Supper, see Council of Trent, Session 22, Chapter 1, before giving them the episcopal consecration sometime after the supper, since according to Acts 1:20, citing the Psalms, quote, "For it is written to the book of Psalms, let the habitation become desolate, and let there be none to dwell therein, and his bishopric," in Greek episkopin, "let another take." End quote. It would seem the office has already been established and Matthias was elevated to it. While someone could say there is no textual proof Matthias was not himself a priest or ordained a priest before, there was no ordination process mentioned in the chapter anyway. And in place of silence, it is only fair to look inductively at the example of the other apostles, whom were all ordained at the Last Supper for a reason. Between the appeal to Scripture and to the other authorities of canon law, I can only maintain that my opinion of Anglican ordinations, even those who receive them from those wishing to impart proper intent and understanding into the words of the ordinal in the most Catholic sense, would still be ordaining someone who is ineligible to receive the orders, thus remaining laity and failing to become bishops and impart any other lower order. If, however, the Holy See was to change its mind and permit such ordinations, then it would warrant real reconsideration. Until then, both Scripture and canonical authority undercut such an appeal and make these ordinations dubious at best and invalid at worst. For now, I am well within my right to consider Anglican orders null and void, but I am happy to disagree with someone who would only consider some of these orders merely dubious. With that, I end my response and thank Christian for the passion and engagement. He might be over on the other side of the Tiber for now, but I can appreciate him since he presented his argument with the intent of reconciling the differences between Anglicans and Catholics, and allow us to retain as much of our doctrine in the process. Not many Anglicans would be this charitable, but for that I thank him and I give him the utmost respect.